I think at the root of all eating issues is relationship, rupture in relationship with ourselves, with other people, with the world. When we have some rupture in that relationship with subtleness in ourselves and knowing what we need inside and feeling entitled to express that and reach and take in what we need, we get pretty scared inside and we start reaching into the environment for maybe not the real thing or a substitute or whatever it is, and trying to like make one thing fix one problem when it can't do that. I call it a faux window of tolerance for whatever it is going on inside.
Today, I'm pleased to introduce to you my special guest, Tracy Brown. Tracy Brown is a trauma-informed nutrition therapist / eating disorder dietitian, stress recovery coach, and nutrition counseling skills teacher. She walks beside people wanting to heal their relationship with food and weight, as well as feel safer and less stressed in their bodies. Since 2006, she has guided people one-on-one, as well as in groups, in healing from disordered eating and chronic dieting. Without further ado, here is Tracy. Tracy, it is so great to have you here. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, Christina. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to speak to your people and hopefully, provide some regulation. It'd be great.
I'm sure that you will do that. I have a lot of questions for you. I guess to start, I want to ask you, how did you end up here? Because I think that your slant on nutrition is really interesting. You know, there's tons of registered dietitians out there, but what really attracted me to you was, for one, focus on mindfulness. There's a lot of focus on self-regulation. I'm just curious, like, what was your path to get to have you start into studying nutrition, and how did it evolve so that you are, offer what you offer now?
Actually makes me really emotional when you ask me that question because it's such a coming home kind of answer, full circle. But I think at the root of all eating issues is relationship, rupture in relationship with ourselves, with other people, with the world. And when we have some rupture in that relationship with subtleness in ourselves and knowing what we need inside and feeling entitled to express that and reach and take in what we need, um, we get pretty scared inside and we start reaching into the environment for maybe not the real thing or a substitute or whatever it is, and trying to like make one thing fix one problem when it can't do that. I call it a faux window of tolerance for whatever it is going on inside. So my history real quick is probably like a lot of people listening, grew up around people who were also in diet culture, had a lot of their own just unprocessed and still to say unprocessed wounds, trauma stuff, intergeneration, multi-generational stuff, neglect, attachment ruptures, all that, plus diet culture. It kind of forms what it feels like part of who you are until you realize there's another option, there's something different. But I didn't go on to develop an eating disorder personally until late teenage years, again, for relationship rupture stuff and just all this, like, honestly feeling too much in my system from all the stuff around me, whether it's in my family, we don't really do emotions. They're loving, they provide, but also the stuff that happened in family and family systems in the past, that was like that under the rug, plus day to day, how do you do life and be grounded and intentional, that wasn't taught. And then you grow up in diet culture and you want to belong when you're a teenager and you put all that big mash of stuff together. And it's pretty easy, even if you're not personally, let's say, pressured, shamed, bullied to lose weight. Everybody else was doing it. And when I did eat a little bit, pretty quickly, I got the sense of like, oh, I don't have to feel this so much. I got some relief. And so it turned into this, I don't know how many years from start to finish here with where felt like I could say I'd recovered 7 years, whatever it was, but just this ping ponging of restricting, binging, over exercising, health addiction, fitness addiction, all that stuff. One of the blessings I got in all that journey is that in a little bitty teeny tiny town I grew up in the Midwest, one private practice dietitian, and she had a very, before it was popular, a non-diet approach, a very pragmatic, your body knows how to eat, your body can know when it's full, your body wants to heal if we get out of the way and provide, the environment to heal. And I'm like, oh, cool. And plus she was very relational and very like what do you want to do and what's important to you? And what do you think about this versus telling me what to do
Yeah.
and putting yourself up as the expert, but
Yeah.
more as a partnership. I felt like, oh, this is great. One, a person can ask me about feelings and not run away and actually tolerate mine. And also, well, what are your values? What do you want? How do you want to see your life go? And I'm like, well, I don't want this. And dieting got me here. I was fine with food, even though I was around dieters. I thought that was kind of silly, little self-absorbed. But it's easier to say that when you're a kid versus then when you start to grow up, like, oh, I'm feeling the pressure now
Yeah.
to conform. That's different. But I could see like, oh, this way actually leads to more of what I was running away from, not more connection or authentic connection. So she taught me some of these things really basically. And I thought that's what dietitians did naively. In my therapy experiences, it was very heady and didactic. And I'm a pretty experiential relational learner. So she was right up my alley. And so I go to school and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is some of this is a reinforcement to disorder eating right here. Like
Mm.
controlling things, good food, bad food, weight prejudice and stigma. I'm like, yuck. Like I can't fully digest this again because I just undid all that.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that all my education is bad. Gosh, I know about biochemistry. I can tell you when you eat something, what's happening with no fear mongering. It's great. No, I know a lot of good stuff, but a lot of it I had to learn because diet culture is kind of embedded in the medical field,
Mhm.
unfortunately, because that's just the system. As I was doing my recovery and lots of ups and downs, bouncing from like anorexia to like, I'll just be healthy and exercise addiction and then under eating, which led to binge eating and all that. Lots of rounds and rounds and lots of stops and starts and all that. But still, with my eyeballs, I'm like, I thriving is available. Not everybody thinks and feels this way, even though it seems like it in the world. I just trusted that and kept going forward. But anyway, the core of all of this was like relationship. You have to slow down enough to learn inside like what's too much, what's not enough, what's missing, what works when. By the end of my college career, like I'm gonna have to unlearn some stuff cool. And either I'm gonna figure out how to do this work and help people where I've been in a different kind of way than I've learned in school, or I just find something else to do. I was actually pretty okay with that. But very fortunately, I was lucky again to like just find professionals who've been doing this for decades and decades that did the same thing. We want you to come home to your body, and your body's not the threat, and your food's not the threat. But we've got to look at where the misrepresentations of your beliefs are in that and learn to trust again. And it's messy and it's going to take some time. It's a process. So, um, the biggest things is being around as safe as people as you can and learning how to like not block that, receive it, and know the difference and not going back to what you already know, even though it's familiar. So I had to keep learning these lessons as well. So that goes with food and people and all that. So when I started doing this work, it felt really obvious that you can't throw nutrition facts at people and expect them to be able to change because their nervous system is wired up for like fear and shame and worry and wanting, and they don't know how to have belonging and safety without food rules or even without binging. It's like these are faux, it's all we had at some point to like feel less bad, but it's not the same thing as thriving in peace and freedom. And so that's what my thing has been doing since 2006 to teach people how to get in there and trust. And sometimes, yeah, we need some nutrition education, but most of the time, you've got to learn to slow down and know inside what the truth is about what the function of I feel fat, wanting to eat past fullness, wanting to undereat really is. Once you kind of learn what this is about, like, oh, this is kind of bigger than just like I'm out of control and I'm unmanageable and something's wrong with me. It's not that.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I love how what you offer is so integrative and that your own personal experience of like working with someone and them really having an interpersonal impact on you inspired you to now do the work and work with people and helping them feel safe and helping them to regulate the nervous system and explore the truth that is for them. I think it's really true that, just trying to, throw facts at people about nutrition. There's some things that people know. It's like we know things, but knowledge is not the same as implementation. Our struggle oftentimes is in implementation. I think going slower, that sounds like that's an important foundation of your work. And I would agree with that. And that's something that I have a constant intention around is going slower. I wonder, how do you support people in actually doing that?
Absolutely. Well, our first session is literally just tell me your story. When was the first time that food or weight was a thing? Not when you started dieting or binging or eating in the closet, but like literally an awareness of like there's something too much or not enough going on about me. I think it's about me. Something's wrong with me. Because when we're kids, we can't differentiate because we need adult humans to like take care of us. So it's pretty dangerous to have a thought system or thought form of like, oh, they're over here not getting their act together because of their own trauma. It's not my fault that they're shaming my body. I don't have a body problem. It's their stuff. We can't do that. So we start to internalize what's around us, that it's my fault if I had a better body. They wouldn't be mean to me, neglect me, or, this could be about anything, not just for the body, but anything, right? That's too much for the system. So it's slowing down and telling that story. And sometimes I'll interject like, oh, that feels really important. And you just change the subject. Do you want to go to this subject or continue here? Because they're both really important. Simple things like that when we hijack ourselves, when we get nervous or feel scared of the intimacy of being vulnerable, whatever. And that goes on and on and on every session. Some sessions I start with, hey, let's just feet, seat, and back. Literally, can you feel can you let your feet, instead of internally grounding and body checking, I just do external first to assess like how much can you tolerate of being present? Is it okay that your feet are in your socks? Yeah.
Can you tell the audience what that is? I think it's really worth explaining a little bit more.
Yeah. So I know I'll just use my own example. Like, whoo, I couldn't feel my way out of a brown paper bag from like 0 to about, 18, 19 years old. It's like I had a feeling and I would smush it away quickly because there wasn't room for it. In my lived experience, my family was really great at something, but not so comfortable with others. So I never learned emotional regulation. And so I was pretty full of it, literally inside. When people say, I feel so big inside or feel too much or feel gross, I'm like, what are you feeling full of? Because it ain't food. And you haven't eaten yet today or you haven't eaten too much, but we have all this in us. And so sometimes we just don't have the comfort level experience. We're terrified of our insides, to be honest, of like what's in there. And I won't start there. I start with like, can you just look around? Like, can you let your eyes land on anything outside and notice that it's not a threat? In other words, less bad. It's not even good. If you feel so bad today or inside, we're not going to even go there. I'm not trying to make you feel good. Can we notice around us what's less bad or safe enough? Just one little molecule of like less bad is really great for some of us who've like, if I go in here, I'm going to explode. It's going to be too much. I'm going to be flooded forever. I can't, it's too much. And not judging that, not judging it. It just is. And over time, as you get more comfortable with like, oh, I felt something hard or big, or if somebody like me witnesses something big or hard in you and don't judge you for it or gaslight you for it or try to make it go away, just like kind of like dip our toe, come back. And that's one of the reasons food issues are so prevalent, is because that's what we're doing with the food, restricting, binging. We're trying to deal with all of this in like a sideways kind of way because we don't have the tools and we haven't had the compassionate witnessing to like, this feels too much. Let's go over here, titrate some off. We'll come back another time, 5 minutes from now, 5 days from now, whatever, to let it be okay that like grounding and like internal stuff, like we say yoga or just like, let's do an internal body scan, can dissociate people. It's too much. They don't have the skills yet. That's not bad. It's just because you weren't taught it. I had to learn these things in my 20s and 30s. I'm almost 50 now. I had to learn these things as a young adult. I didn't get these skills as a toddler and a child and an adolescent, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just like, yeah, well, that makes sense. That makes sense that would feel so big and so hard and too much. And I want to run and never come back.
Mm-hmm. I think that it sounds like you're teaching them really important tools like grounding techniques, especially because binge eating oftentimes is so dissociative in nature, and for helping
Yes.
people to learn
Mm-hmm.
to feel their feet, feel their seat, or just to orient in space and having them have basic tools to
Uh-huh.
connect with their senses, that really helps them to stay present in the moment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that, that can start to build over time, and then that can equate to, as you were saying, stuff that's not external but to internal, like, this challenging feeling, can I be
Mhm.
with it? Because I was just with a sensation, I could be with that, but now can I be with this other internal sensation? I think I can.
Yeah. It goes a long way with feeling hunger and fullness. Like
Mhm.
all those internal sensations of eating from the time you smell it or put it on your tongue, it goes down your throat. You probably have some overcoupling with something else that was either too much or not enough in that whole eating experience, which is why we eat fast. And it's hard to slow down because we got to eat, or we need some pleasure, or we need some joy, or we're looking for peace, but dissociation is really being numb. It's not peace, but we don't know the difference. So we're doing those things. And it's like this process slows it down. So we don't have so much stops and starts and whack-a-mole. It's like it can go more smoothly because we're pacing it. It's like, you're not going to stop binge eating this week. Next month, we're trying to like stretch it out to where it feels safer to go slower so that when you do eat, that feels safer too. And you can like notice like, oh, that sensation is connected to this thing. And that's why I shove it down.
Mhm.
Or I don't even want to know nutrition facts because then I have to be aware that like what I'm doing hurts me, but I don't want to know about it. It's okay. You have to go at that pace. Um, yeah, so those are kind of what sessions look like for people. People be getting just going at that pace, not jumping the shark, not going too fast. And also we have to recognize that, we live in a quick fix culture and we don't want to feel the pain and it's hard. And that's a whole orientation itself to go the pace of the slowest parts of the road. Like I know people want to stop binge eating like yesterday,
Right.
but it serves a purpose. So if
Mhm.
we can be curious and compassionate about that, we actually go faster when you can go slower.
That sounds really sustainable. People who are struggling with eating disorders, they might be like, "Okay, well, just tell me what to eat," or something like that, but then
Right.
they don't have the regulational, basis, or they don't have the interoceptive awareness to interrupt their patterns. Then you tell them, "Okay, I eat these things," but then the urge to binge just happens so fast they're not interrupting it, but, like, it sounds like you're helping them build the foundational tools of just being in the moment, starting to build basic awareness, developing grounding techniques, over time iterating, building, folding in self-compassion, and just working on that. And then those are the tools that are going to help someone interrupt their patterns. So I think that sounds really sustainable.
Yeah. And the beauty of those tools are everyone who's listening is that these are free. You can plug them into every hour. I had to do this every hour of my day, not as a perfectionist, but just like I knew how much I needed it. Because when I would slow down, I would feel how full of adrenaline my body was. I've been wired up and hypervigilance all my whole life. So it's like, woof. Well, no wonder I eat fast, talk fast, move fast, go over my boundaries because I don't know how to do it. So I would practice these like slowing down things, like anything from weighted blankets sitting on me to laying on the floor to putting hot compresses on my belly, the back, my neck, getting the sunshine every hour. And these are things that, again, you don't have to do very much. It doesn't mean to be perfectly grounded, but you're practicing seeing that, like, I can slow down and nothing bad happens. I can slow down and I didn't eat when I wasn't hungry. And I didn't implode from emotion. I could titrate little bits off and then did bigger bites of it with my coach or whatever. And you start to see as the months go by, like, that's kind of integrated in my life where I do those things and kind of just plan my day different and do things differently because you have enough yield to get clarity and then reach into the environment and take in or not what's enough or not. And
Definitely. Yeah, I do some of those practices as well. I love lying on the ground.
cool.
Like, I also, like to take walks, like, purposely without headphones, or work out without headphones, because I think, you know, I'm getting so much stimulation. I wanna, like, practice just hearing the sounds, even if it's not anything particularly pleasant. Okay, the sound of a car going by or something like that, but still, I'm giving myself the opportunity to have silence so that I could maybe accustom myself to being able to listen to what it's like to be quiet with myself. And I've also done that practice of like, I would literally set a timer like every hour, because for me, the binges were so bad and it just would come over me so quickly that I realized that I really needed to work on building my my awareness. And so I would constantly check in with myself, again, not necessarily trying to be perfectionistic or anything like that, but just in the spirit of curiosity, like, can I start to like learn like what's going on with me, check in with my body, check in with my emotional state, check in with my thoughts, check in with myself, so that I don't feel like I just got hit upside the head with something, but that I have a more of a runway, like, oh, okay,
Mhm.
starting to notice something when it's just small, instead of noticing something when the intensity is feels like too unmanageable. So I think like the constant check-ins was actually really helpful to me. And then building in these practices of like these sensory self-regulation practices too, like weighted blankets and all those things are also really helpful. But I can say for myself, doing the constant check-ins was also really helpful in not necessarily slowing down, but I'd say definitely creating the awareness that would allow me to find the pause in my behaviors. I want to ask you about becoming your own nutrition expert. So we were talking more so on like sort of the foundational pieces, but let's say that they have progressed and they feel ready to maybe make some changes on the nutritional front. I know that you talk a lot about becoming your own nutritional expert, which I think is very empowering because we're all so unique. And so, how do you support them in becoming their own nutrition expert?
Yeah. So the foundation of that, when your body's in some kind of deficit, whether it's, let's say, actual calories or nutrients or full permission to eat, you've got to work on that foundation first to get to that stage. Most people jump the shark and they want the next like superfood to tell me what to do. And it's like, no, no, that's not actually how normal competent eaters eat. You know what normal means. Like they kind of have food in front of them and they're like unconsciously checking in without even knowing they're doing it because they've been like this since they were babies. They can just do it. And like what works the best from what's around and like bit of nutrition education, especially if there's a medical condition you got to apply. But to get there, you have to do what babies know how to do, which is can you eat from hunger and fullness? Can you eat reliably? Can you eat flexibly? So if you eat enough, then you have like thousands of experiences of like kind of knowing your body pretty well to like how you need to eat, like if you're getting sick or before your cycle or as you're aging. You have all these experiences now. The more you give permission to eat enough food, most people again try to fix binging with restricting. That doesn't work. It actually leads to more binging and more weight and health instability. So it's like we kind of have to surrender to like my body needs what it needs. Let's not fight it. Let's honor that. So it's a process, of like again habituation to food and learning the function of the food, learning like, oh, well, this food I don't ever binge on, but this one I really do. They're actually the same nutritionally, but they have a different story with them attached. So I've got to dismantle the story to make peace with it. So it's not attached to like, this is the only way I know how to get emotional comfort. It's like it can get neutral and get equal, right? So all that work, kind of when you're there, whether that takes you a year, 3 years, whatever that takes, 5 years, you start to be like, well, how do I do this nutrition thing now? Well, let's look at where you're starting from. And is your honestly your intake over the course of a month pretty diverse? And are you open to like where there might be some gaps? You can look up some information. You could like get some basic nutrition. Like nutrition really isn't all that sexy, to be honest. It's very diversity of food is super important, and if we can honor that along with there being your food is pleasurable to eat and you're flexible, then you can start kind of picking and choosing maybe from the environment, things that might match your situation, but you're doing it in a providing supportive kind of way, not a legalistic, like I have to do this forever. And if I don't do this forever, I won't be healthy. Now you're in trouble again. It's like, oh, it's literally like, I don't need a lot of fiber. What foods have fiber? What foods from this list of like high-ish fiber foods do I actually like? And how can I put those in an enjoyable way that's fairly consistent? It's really that gentle. And then kind of practice it and do it and notice when you kind of veer off because you're in convenience mode or whatever. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm feeling a little more less regular again or whatever's going on. You might have symptoms from that. Then you just readjust and you come back. There's no judgment. And then as we age, we're going to need to make changes. So you learn some new information or the more honestly interoceptively aware you are, you might even notice it. Like, as I've aged, like, oh, I was a dessert person my whole life. I'm like, I don't feel it as much. I mean, I still eat them and I love it and all that. But it's like, I kind of notice myself for fun. It's like, I want different things. What I know about nutrition and being my age is like, yeah, I need more minerals. That kind of makes sense why I want more this or that or the other. I mean, I'll be like low calorie food or diet food or whatever, but it just is. I'm like, all right, I'll roll with it. And, got the need met, whatever. You can get that sensitive to things. I don't make much of it though. Just don't make, I don't like, oh, look at me, my new routine. I'm like, nah, that's just where I'm at. It's all right. I don't put any moral value on it or any like even with how good I am for like shifting my nutrition. It doesn't mean anything about me. It just, I'm adjusting to life basically. And that's how simple it could be. It doesn't mean that I don't care. That's how you can be a nutrition expert. When I see somebody advertise something, I'm like, huh, okay, I know that's how this world is. It's always got a new thing. I wonder what that's about. I might go do some research. If I can't figure it out, I might go to somebody who maybe knows lots more than me. And like, what's the plain facts about it? In what context and how does this work? And that's all I need. It's a half hour or an hour conversation and roll on. It doesn't have to be because I have such a foundation of provision and not fear-based eating. It doesn't take that much changing and I make it enjoyable.
I get a real sense of flexibility, adaptability, neutrality from you talking, and I think that your clients definitely benefit from that. It's definitely an admirable state to be in, instead of in contrast to diet culture and people who are really striving and struggling. So
To fix things. The mentality isn't fixing. The mentality is, again, can I be curious? I do need to maybe make some changes here. Whatever it is, whether it's a mineral thing or a fiber thing or meal timing thing, whatever it is, I want to be curious about it. And it does not need to be punitive. And if I don't fix this in 2 seconds, bad's going to happen to me. That's not, our bodies are on some ways fragile, but in a lot of really resilient. We got some room, some buffer usually to figure things out in a way that's sustainable. I did a video forever ago, maybe 10 years ago, 8, I don't know what it was, about my journey with adding back in fruit and vegetables because I use fruit and vegetables as a tool somewhat of punishment, maybe for binging the day before. When I was trying to be really super health conscious, really, I was at my worst with disordered eating. My weight looked normal, but because I wasn't restricting to be thin, it was more about like, well, I'll just be really healthy. And that'll fix my binge eating. And I really abused myself with them. It wasn't out of health. It wasn't really it was just another defensive accommodation for all the emotions I was suppressing, because I couldn't feel and didn't know how I felt inside. I didn't know how to deal with it. So I made an external problem. If I could just be healthier, then I won't feel so bad. I couldn't name it. I didn't know what it was, but whatever. I'll just be healthy because that's what everybody else is doing. So I'll eat lots of fruit and vegetables. Most of the ways I ate them I didn't like. It was a lot of expense. It wasn't making me like, I didn't feel thriving from it. It actually just, made me feel kind of punished and bad because I must have to eat so much because I'm so bad kind of thing and whatever. So I had to like just cut it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do something really radical here and I'm not going to eat fruit and vegetables anymore unless I really good and well want it. Like, oh, I could taste it in my mouth and that sounded good and the way I would make it would be good. It took 6 months. And the only thing that remotely looked like a produce was tomato sauce in a jar, like just spaghetti sauce. And I would dip it in bread and cheese and it was delicious and whatever. That's all I could do and I would want it when I did it. And I just felt so traumatized by all the fixing, body fixing, health fixing. It just none of it was authentic. It was out of fear. And so like, I can't have that in my life if I'm going to be free with food. And so it took 6 months and I would check in every week at the grocery store. Like, wanting that. Can I imagine that? And every time I would imagine it, it would go over the top. Instead of like, okay, we'll get the bag of apples. And then I was planning about how many apples I was going to eat to finish that bag of apples. Like, stop, you're not ready. If you can, so I had to like, when I start wanting it physically, I'll do it. And one day that came around. I had full permission to eat. I was eating all the foods, and for some people that's really scary because you're going to feel out of control. But basically it's your body healing all that deprivation. It wasn't that I was out of control. It was just more than the diet rules would allow me to eat of the bread, the cookies. I had to habituate and work on my emotional issues so that I wasn't just swinging. I didn't want to have that diet rebel saying like, screw it and eat it all and switch on these emotions. Like, no, we're going to eat these foods in hunger and fullness. We're going to be respectful. If I'm feeling bad, I need to go talk to somebody about it, journal, whatever. But, I'm not going to be mad at myself if I binge just to suppress emotion. No big deal. But can I do it less and less and less? So anyway, in the meantime, this whole fruit and vegetable thing kind of just kept sitting there. And then one day, it literally was like, out of the blue, I was like, I think I really want that Fuji apple. It's really pretty. I can actually taste it in my mouth a little bit as I'm looking at it at the store. Maybe you can have it. Of course, a little bit I tried to, from all the food health idolatry was like, okay, get the bag. No, I don't want the whole bag. I said I wanted one. Did you hear me? Diet voice. And I bought one and I'm like, you don't have to eat it. Just buy it. You don't have to eat it. Just sit it in the fridge and let it be there. No judgment. If you throw it away, it rots. So what? Cost me 79 cents at the time. This was 1999, whatever it was. And that's what happened. I actually ate it and I enjoyed it. And I'm like, no pressure. You have to do that ever again if you don't want to. Or if you want something, then you can do it. So it slowly became that process of like one or two apples bought and one pear and one teeny tiny handful of fresh green beans and I think you can only buy these if you promise to eat them and when it's enjoyable, not plain, boiled in water to nothing, salt and butter. Because that's not how you legitimately like them. Slowly, 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 you know? And because that was a tool to try to fix binge eating too, is to fill myself up with all that food. And I had to recognize that's not what that food's for. That's a part of our eating. It's not a tool to do something else. All it can do is provide these micronutrients. That's its job. That's it. It's not for anything else. Had to put it in its proper place of tending and enjoyment. And that's how I make peace with that stuff too. And whatever recommendations come down from whatever government entity or whatever this or whatever that, it all has to be put in context of where you are in this given moment, what your preferences are, where you are in recovery, and do you enjoy it? Because if you like it, you're going to do it. If it feels like you're doing something that's enjoyable, you're going to want to eat it. If you're not, it's just another tool to deal with some kind of other issue.
Thanks for sharing. That sounds like quite a journey that you went through, and that's impressive that you went 6 months without eating fruits and vegetables.
To be honest, I couldn't do any of the shoulds because the shoulds were part of the problem. I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't want this. I should want that.
I saw on your Instagram something really interesting, using sound to help to provide food choice clarity. My dissertation is around using the senses in helping people self-regulate with regards to urges to binge eat. And so I'm really curious about the safe and sound protocol that you mentioned, which is this, using sound.
It's a funny little story because, like, I been studying, polyvagal and did SE work and all that. And, Stephen Porges is the creator of Safe and Sound in all that world. And it was like I think I took some training he did, and it was a one line sentence in this whole hours and hours of content of like when they did the sound protocol for people with autism, their interest in food improved. And of course, here's me, the dietitian, only dietitian in these trainings. Like, that's okay. Because I have some people, they wouldn't identify as having autism or on the spectrum or whatever, neurodivergence, but it's like, exhibit qualities that are really similar, and maybe they are, and they're just not identified. I don't need to label things, whatever. Is when I have a lot of people who get in these really high activations, high global activation, really low. It's like interest in food is pretty low because they're just in these survival states that are so extreme that I can't tell if I need to eat. My interest in awareness isn't very good. I'm really activated by my own senses. And so I had a few people that were willing to experiment with Safe and Sound to help with their appetite. And all it does for people who are struggling with eating disorders is it creates differentiation. And the way I've seen it used for people with eating disorders has been really helpful is usually it isn't the regular dose. You have like, here's those 30 minutes of listening to the sound, the music, whatever. It's like sometimes if people have a lot of high activation, really fight or flight, 30 seconds is enough to start to like notice that, get them out of that high freeze, create enough differentiation that it opens up the rest a little bit more with the vagus nerve. And that, because that's connected into your gut, there just gets a little bit more tolerance of sensation. And they're so locked down. And I don't even always finish the whole protocol with people. Because a little bit goes a long way, and they were like, "Oh, I wanted that food," or "Oh yeah, I can eat that," or "Oh, I smelled that thing, and now I didn't have that autopilot response that now I smelled that thing that I can't eat that thing." It just creates some differentiation in people's systems. I don't use it that much because people are pretty busy with a lot of stuff, but sometimes when it's feeling like nothing else is working and we're pretty locked down, that it helps. Especially with binging, I would say. Like, if the binging is happening and there's a lot of fight or flight, the slow down is so helpful. If we're having a lot of dissociation and numbness, you need more sound to help open that up. But I think it definitely kind of works like it does with people on the spectrum for people with disordered eating. It's very pretty much the same.
Yeah, no, that's really fascinating. I hadn't heard specifically about the link between the safe and sound protocol in food, but just in general, my exploration with sensory modulating strategies is that they are effective for people with eating disorders. Some people do consider addictive eating and compulsive eating and eating disorders as a form of neurodivergence. And so, if sensory modulating strategies are helpful for neurodivergence, it makes sense that it would work for people who have eating issues because our brains are different. They just kind of work a little bit different, and we might have some sensory things going on, maybe not. But I would agree that it does seem that using the senses can create tremendous impact in people's nervous systems.
Yeah, I think going back to kind of the language I use is where's the too much and where's the not enough.
Mhm,
And,
mhm.
as you're trying to like slow down before meals and all the decision points, what do you need to help you yield so that you can have clarity so that when you're in the environment, you can tell the difference between a threat and a non-threat. And then the same thing when it goes in you, can you tell the difference inside? So whatever sensory tools you need to use to do that, it's super helpful. And it cuts down on all the frustration of trying to think your way out of it. You might know what to do, but you can't get there because your system's too on fire or it's too
Absolutely.
frozen. And
Mhm,
if you can get your body into saying here now safety, however we do it, music, touch, smell, lay down on the floor,
mhm.
it just, people go into, kind of get just treatment burnt out because we talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and figure out. And we know it, but our bodies can't hold it. It can't unglue from, I got to stay safe with what I know, even though what I know is hurting because it's neurobiological. It's like a different part of us that needs safety, not just our heads having the right information. So it goes back to relationship to all of us, all parts of us, relationship inside, relationship with the outside, and being able to like, I can plug in to resource that helps me grow my window tolerance so that I can be more intentional without it being so white knuckly.
I'm 100% in agreement that sometimes the advice or the treatment for dealing with these disordered eatings is overly intellectual and actually exacerbates the disconnect between mind and body, and really getting in our body, using our resources can be tremendously helpful in helping people move forward so that they can recover and make more empowered choices.
Absolutely.
I understand that you have some free gifts.
Yeah, on my website, so tracybrownrd.com, I think there are like several now. I mean, you do this long enough and you have that kind of brain that makes stuff, right? So a lot of times when we're feeling overwhelmed, you can't read whole books about the process. So I do a summary of like the intuitive eating book. That way it's just more accessible and then you can scope out and deeper when you're ready. There's a gift that has the point, like the why do we want to do intuitive eating? What is it? What's in it for you? And then some steps to get there about the differentiation of like different hunger fullness signals, how to tell the difference between the emotions connected maybe with those physical signals as well inside. I have a whole another gift that has a lot to do with what we talked about today was like, you got to use your senses, use your body as a resource to help you versus your body being the threat, and very practical things like we talked about today, like the weighted blankets, all that. I did a little role play. Like I was talking to somebody about like, I feel fat. Too fat for what? Who says what's going to happen? Because you've got to kind of sit yourself like outside of yourself a little bit and talk to that voice sometimes that says this or that, the other about you, and this bad thing will happen. That's not you. Kind of the part of you that holds the trauma about feeling like you're defective based on what you look like. And it is adamant that you have to lose weight to be safe. You can't talk that part of yourself into like, oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. You're fine. Everybody loves you. It's what's the function of this? You're doing a really good job. And so having a little role play with that's fun to kind of see on paper. And I have one that's really practical because a lot of us, because we dieted and binged for so long in our developmental years, we don't know how to do some, it's hard work adulting. It really is. Like, what do I like? What do we want to make? How do we make it? How do we time it? What's my schedule? There's a lot of factors that make that whole process go. So I have a little gift that kind of gets people started with that process too. It's like, how do you do that? There's a fancy word for it, but how do we do the executive functioning things as we're learning how to like have more regulation, make peace with food, have new like body respect. It's like we still got to feed ourselves in a very practical way when you're not quite super flexible yet. So I really try to not make people struggle so hard to do that. It's especially if you have a family or if you're living with other people, it's like it's got to get on the table. And then better experiences you have with that whole process, the more confident you're going to be. So that's what's on there available for people.
Wow, those sound like a lot of free gifts. Those are many gifts.
Yeah, that's a lot, but get them all and then whatever. Spend 6 months with one. It's not. There's no rush, but it's just some of the basic stuff that people. All these are all things that people bring up. Those first months when they're working with me is make it for people so they know what to expect if they go down this road, whether with me or somebody else or on their own or whatever they choose to do. But these things are all foundational to go where you want to go.
Wonderful. If people want to get to know you, want to follow you, want to connect with you, ask you about your services, what are the best ways?
This is the website, tracybrownrd.com. There's decade plus of stuff like blog posts. If you have a specific topic to search it, you can go to Tracy Brown RD on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Before I did this job, before all the eating disorder stuff, when I was a kid, I was like, I want to be a science and a social studies teacher. So here we are, mixing the two in a weird way. So I do a lot of encouraging and teaching videos, and most things are less than 10 minutes, and do a nuanced topic essentially. Like, here's a big thing, here's one piece of this, and then if you talk about nuances of things, you can talk about things forever, right? So hopefully something will match where you're at if you need it. So
Wonderful. And you have another Instagram too. I saw you had good stuff on there. Will you share that?
so the embodied dietitian one is if you're interested in maybe helping other people, but either a coach, dietitian, clinician, whatever. I do have a training that I put a lot of this stuff together. I mean, when I started doing non-diet nutrition therapy plus body image work in 2006. And then by about 2011, I'm like, all right, there's some people in and out in 2 years with this process. They're good, they're done. But I started to be able to differentiate between folks who like, yeah, diet culture, coping with emotions, and then people who really are struggling with some pretty complex stuff. And I noticed what I was doing is like it wasn't enough. So my trauma study started in 2011, and pretty much everything I learned from then until like the present day, I kind of put there for clinicians to like, here's the layers of things that in our scope of practice we can do, because you can't go round and round and round telling people the same thing, expecting that they can change with that. They need more safety in their system, and here's how to do it, and here's some direction to go to learn.
Wonderful. Yeah, it was an incredible Instagram. I really like both your Instagrams, and we'll be sure to include your website and those two Instagrams in the episode description. I want to thank you so much for being here, Tracy. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, Christine, thank you for having me and really trusting me enough with your precious people that want freedom. And I hope that there was a nugget or two that helped somebody today, and it was well worth the time. Thank you.
Thank you.